Hello and welcome. You know, when I was a kid, my father used to tell me, if you mess up, you fess up. Which obviously is another way of saying, take responsibility for your own actions. Well, that's what I'm here to do today. This is my 1994 LL Bean Approach. Now, I bought this bike new back in 1994, so I've had it for a while. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun, but it's also seen a fair amount of use. Most recently, it was put away for a few years, and then I dragged it back out back in 17 and started riding it again. The bottom bracket, which you can't really tell on video here, is kind of crunchy and rough. Now these are not made to be easily rebuilt. You replace them, no big deal ordinarily, except this darn thing might as well have been welded into the bottom bracket shell. I tried every trick in the book, and I mean everything. Every video that I could find, every written resource I could find, and I could not get that darn thing to budge no matter what I did. And I'll tell you, if RJ the bike guy can't help you, you might as well move on. Then I remembered something. Now my dad was a professional mechanic for much of his early career. And if a bolt was frozen beyond redemption, he would soak it in automatic transmission fluid to free it up. So I poured a couple of ounces down the seat tube and then laid it over drive side down. Let it soak. The problem is, by the time I got around to doing that, I had thoroughly botched up the drive side cup. Now the thing is, that's plastic, or was plastic, and it disintegrated the moment I applied force to it with the bottom bracket tool. And I tried digging it out and using a small drift punch and everything except acid. And by the time I got the bottom bracket out a few days later, I had thoroughly messed up the bottom bracket threads, particularly on the leading edge. Golly. So, you know, it's my own darn fault, nobody else's. I was impatient. Had I gotten the major portion of the bottom bracket out first, then I could have probably done something from inside the bracket shell that would not have destroyed the threads. So I first tried chasing them out with an old drive side metal bottom bracket cup, and that worked about as poorly as you might think. And then I took it to my local bike shop to see if they could cut the threads again. Well, long story short is, they don't have that tool and they don't intend to get one. There are a couple of places about an hour away from where I live, but gee whiz, I mean, you know, you're talking a 2-hour round trip to drop it off and a 2-hour round trip to pick it back up, assuming that they can fix it. So, what I did is I got this Sunlight 2-piece bottom bracket. It's actually called a threadless bottom bracket. And this is not a lot different than some of the 2-piece press-in bottom brackets. Yeah, I figured, you know what, for 30 bucks it's worth a shot. So what I'm going to do now is take this and do a dry fit. Oh, my knee and my hip. I'm an old man. Now this is, as I said, just a dry fit. Proof of concept, if you want to call it that. This is the original crankset that came with the Approach. It's an old Shimano Alivio, I believe. I'm not reusing it because it's riveted, but for the purposes of this test, it's going to be fine. First thing to do, obviously, is install the bottom bracket. Now one thing you notice is there's a little bit of a slope on both sides. This helps to center the bottom bracket within the bracket shell. Step one, of course, is to install it. Be very careful to avoid cross-threading, because it took long enough to get this as it was. And I'm just going to do it up slightly better than hand tight. Take these stock nuts off it. I'll save them for something, who knows. I've got a whole jar of nuts and bolts and screws downstairs. And then just hand tight. That's all I'm doing right now. And again, this is not permanent. If it was, I'd be greasing and Loctiting all over the place. This is nothing more than proof of concept. That seems pretty good. So it looks like there's hope for the old girl yet. Now I'm converting this to a 1x, as I said, and I've got some nice vintage Weinman rims and some honkin' big Trail King tires, and I'm thinking, in fact I have decided because I bought the paint, I'm going to go black with gold accents, inspired by the old 1980s John Player Special Lotus Formula One cars, or perhaps a little more popularly a 1979 Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am. Well, there we go. Another bike frame saved from oblivion. This two-piece bottom bracket was not my first choice, but I think it's going to be an adequate choice, maybe even a good one. We'll see as this summer comes and I get riding, but at the moment I am cautiously optimistic. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. That does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, well, I would encourage you to do so. Below right is a link to a playlist for the approach. And below right is a link to another video which I think you'll enjoy. Goodbye, have a great day, and as always, thanks for watching. I appreciate that when you do.